And so our agency's been around since 1956. Grandpa's two brothers started the agency back in the 50s, and then my dad's been here for about 39 years. So I am a third generation agency owner. Started in the agency unofficially when I was 7, officially when I was 21 after college. So kind of went full circle, went on the carrier side all through college and back over to the agency side. So I bought into the agency last October. So having a blast running an agency with Pops.
Awesome, man. Thanks. So Sam, man, why don't you give us a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Sam at Eisner Insurance. I'm also a third generation agency owner working alongside my dad right now. We're about 65% commercial or personal business, 35 commercial. We're a staff of 5 at the moment. And in the next few years, it'll be a pretty big transition as my dad and a couple of other key people transition out. I'll have the opportunity to start putting together my own team. So it'll be an exciting few years coming up.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, we're going to talk about that, as we go through today, and just have you kind of share some of your plans and thoughts around that and how it's going to impact retention and everything. So, all right. So I have a ton of questions for these guys, and, we've already went through a lot of it. So they're prepared, ready to answer these things, but also we want to make sure we are going to get to your questions as well. So I'm going to keep us moving. But before we really get started, I wanted to share a little bit of sort of combined efforts between these 3 agents. They hadn't even seen this until today, but they have sent a ton of communication around, over 30,000, right? 30,611 pieces of communication to go from, emails and cards and all types of things just through Rocket Referrals. Now, I know you guys are sending other communication outside of that, so that doesn't include, but that's just from here. So that's a lot. And, this ranges of time from, past, year and a half or so. So not that long of a time combined here too. So 84% of all of their clients have email addresses combined. So that's pretty good. And then combined an NPS of 83, which is awesome. It's a really great NPS. So
I want to know which one of the two of you is bringing me down.
So Ben, what is your NPS? I don't know if we want to get into the sharing of the NPS for.
Ironically, I have the lowest NPS out of my 3 partners.
Yeah,
which they'd love to remind me.
Yeah. So, what I was going to share is the average NPS for our agencies, at least using Rocket Referrals, I think is 79. So all 3 are way, above the average. And, the average for an insurance agency outside of us is even lower than that. So if anyone is interested in seeing what those averages are, go to myagencyrank.com. That's where we put all of the NPS averages and things. Almost 2,000 testimonials collected between the 3 of you. So, wow, that's amazing. And the one thing I love to say about testimonials is that this is 1,853 people that are more likely to give a referral, and the retention is a lot higher if they did not give that testimonial. So the numbers, between people who give testimonials and those who don't it's crazy when you look at it. So, I've had people come to me and say, "Hey, Tori, now I have all these testimonials. Now what?" And I'm like, "Well, congratulations. That's the first step that you have in building better retention and increasing referrals is to get testimonials from people." So that's a huge piece. And I think we might touch on that a little bit today, but I wanted to call that out considering it's a retention talk. So thinking about retention, I have a poll to kind of get us started, so I can kind of get the blood flowing in the audience, let you guys know this is interactive. I'm going to slap a poll up on your screen, and it is, how often do you monitor retention percentage? So before I start digging in and asking these guys questions, I want to kind of hear from you. How often are you guys monitoring it? Is it weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annually, or never? Thankfully, I'm seeing nobody on the never category, but don't be embarrassed. It's okay. If you do never, then put it up there. That's fine. But it looks like I've got most of you answered. Once I get to about 70% or so, I usually close the poll. So when you see this pop up, act fast. All right, so there we go. We closed it. I'm going to give you guys where we're at. So it looks like most people, about 49%, monitor your retention monthly. That's really good. You've got 25% that are weekly, 20% quarterly, and 7% annually. So that's about where we sit. So now going back to you guys, considering all the KPIs and things like that, how important is retention, and how are you guys tracking it in your businesses? And anybody can go first, and we'll just kind of round robin it however you guys want to do it.
Is it a free for all?
Free for all.
I'll just jump in and say I check mine monthly based on what my database says. I know it's probably not 100% accurate just because of the way things download and upload, etc. But I do tend to follow and try to figure out why people are leaving, and then try to control those things or fix those things that I can fix. If a business is closed because of COVID, or if someone's moved out of state, or a reason that's out of my concern or my control, then I just move on and try to fix the ones that I can fix.
Okay, and how when you think of all of the metrics, where does retention kind of rank in your guys' mind? Is it one of the most important factors, or is it like policies per user, or policy per customer? Is it premium value? Is it commission? Like, what's the most important KPIs to you, and where does retention rank for you?
I guess I'll start off with that. So retention is super important to us, and I think it's important to note that it's going to take a year to make money on an account anyway. You're always going to lose money from the beginning because you're spending time underwriting it and building that relationship, and so you make a lot more money on renewals and that residual income than just what's coming in the beginning. And I don't even think we mentioned this when we had our prep call, but something that we recently started doing is our management system allows us to essentially put notes in on why we've lost a customer. And so we enter that, whether it's, they're out of business, they moved out of state. And we recently have the ability to say we lost it to this specific carrier. So that when we find that, State Farm has taken rate, I can look back and say, who's everyone I lost at State Farm in the last 2 years? And that's kind of warm leads to go after. And so we found that to be really successful when we found, especially in Michigan, we've had a lot of rates all over the place with reform on the personal auto side. And so it's been nice to kind of be more targeted in going after those accounts we've lost.
Cool. So what management system is that for you, Ben? And then Michelle, how are you tracking why people are leaving too?
So we're on Applied
Epic. Okay.
We're on HawkSoft, and we can also put in whether it went to a carrier for price, carrier for coverage, out of state or whatever. So we can separate them and tag them that way.
Okay, cool. At what point are you asking clients, why did you leave? Or are you just inferring that from when they tell you they want to cancel?
For us, I try to talk to every person who wants to cancel and just ask, are you leaving us because of something I did? Is it, something out of your control? I want to know, and I'm not afraid to ask. Yeah,
that's good. I think that getting over that fear of asking is really important. I know it's an uncomfortable situation, and a lot of times it feels uncomfortable because the person on the other end is also uncomfortable, right? Like they don't want to be put on I'm sorry, Michelle, I didn't want to hurt your feelings or anything, which is an interesting thing because that's an important point I wanted to make, is that because of that situation, sometimes you don't always get the best answer, right? So sometimes they'll tell you that it's price or something that's not for you. So you have to be careful, when you go through those conversations, and always be a little bit skeptical. So that's why I love the NPS and how that can be separated from it. Like it's an environment where people can give you information about why they might leave before they leave, and kind of give you a chance to that. So Sam, I interrupted. I didn't give you a chance, to talk about how you're tracking why people leave and how important retention is on yours, your agency.
Yeah, sure. Retention is, yes, amongst the very top metrics we're tracking. I'd say it's probably number one. I love what Michelle and Ben are doing to track reasons why, fighting to find the reasons why people are leaving. We do that to an extent, probably not as much as we should, and I think that's really where the value, or a lot of value, comes from. So that might be something that we take away from this conversation. It's the need to do that.
Yeah, cool, good. Okay, so speaking of polls, I kind of already got into this one a little bit sooner than I want, but I'm going to slap it up there. Let everybody hear from the audience, because I'm curious, what they say. Why do people cancel their accounts with you? I was going to ask this question a little bit later, but I'm going to go ahead and put it up since we kind of got into it. Better price from competitor, by the way, is already kind of eking up to the top, but looks like some more are coming out. I wish that everybody could see these live results happening. I don't think the participants of the meeting can see the poll actually be, responding as it happens, but it's kind of fun to watch. Maybe the reason they don't is because it would influence your decision. I don't know if you watched it happen. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close. I guess maybe that's why they don't show, presidential polls until after the polls close. They don't start counting things until after they close, because you don't want to influence people. So anyway, closing the poll. Let's do the answers here. So by far, people say that their accounts are canceled. Better price from a competitor, 73%. I find it interesting that nobody said better service from a competitor. And then we have 11% could no longer insure them, lost contact with the customer, 6%, change in the customer's finance or situation, 4% policy no longer needed. And by the way, I know that I don't have a full exhaustive list of reasons here. I'm limited to 6 that I could put in. So maybe I should have put in other. But here's what we can do. If you have something that I didn't cover, throw it in the chat. And I'm curious what other people say. And I'm gonna come back to this because I have some really good comments and data to share with you guys. So, all right, let's back up just a second and just talk a little bit. We kind of got into this discussion when we met earlier before the webinar around sort of the hard to quantify stuff. And I wanted to get your guys' take on this because I think you all had really good opinions on it. But a lot of agencies or businesses in general just kind of like live or die on, on ROI. Did this communication that I send get X result? Did I sell X number of policies from this email or this text, or is it working? What's your take on this? How do you measure just all around overall communications with customers? Is it the cumulative effect, of all of these things, or are you still looking for like benefit from one on one piece?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
I think it's cumulative only because I think it's too difficult to quantify and actually measure everything that you do, whether it be a birthday card or a just because phone call every year, or offering a review or completing a review, or whatever those things are. Or I think it's just a cumulative overall thing. We went to a carrier's best practices seminar where it took 10 successful agencies, found all the things they had in common, and multiple types of communication was very important on that list, whether it be a mail or email or texting or birthday cards or whatever it was. I think it's just a cumulative environment that you create where it all has an impact together.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I guess I'll take that next. I was in the background. I think I'm going to share my screen actually.
Okay.
So, kind of going off those kind of hard to track communications, I think specifically for us, Rocket Referrals has been really essential because we're getting more honest feedback. And I think a lot of times that's easier to take to heart and to make changes than seeing just numbers that don't necessarily always mean something to you. I had shared this when we were in our talk earlier, but we send out an email newsletter every month, and that's a good way to know if people are communicating with us. So I just pulled up here so I can go in and track like how many people are opening every single one of my newsletters, how many people, sorry, these are the opens, how many people are clicking on things in my newsletter. So that's a really good way for me to be able to track. And we found that when it comes to marketing, we spend a lot of time and money on marketing for different things in the community and things that aren't like a radio ad or a TV ad. And so we send this newsletter out every month that goes to all of our customers, and it always has an insurance article. It always has an article based on a program we do called Quotes for a Cause. And so we essentially tally up how many quotes we do every month, and then we donate $5 per quote to a different nonprofit. And so every month in our newsletter, we're always highlighting who we did the previous month for Quotes for a Cause, and then who our highlight is for the upcoming month. And then essentially what I did in the past, I found myself spending a lot of money on Google AdWords and search engine optimization. And essentially now all of my newsletter articles and everything goes back to my website. And so our blog is updated probably 4 or 5 times a month. We always have different insurance articles, different community articles on here. And so it's a really good way that we can kind of track our content and not have to essentially pay for it, because our website is more used as an educational tool.
Yeah, that's really cool. I remember, when we were talking about it, I was thinking, Ben and I need to do another webinar someday and talk about how we can combine things like your newsletter and all of your blog content with something like Rocket Connect, that we can put those articles in Rocket Connect and send them out on a regular basis for people, even after your normal, like recycle some of these articles. So I think there's something really cool to explore there, and I want to dig in with that, because you've been really successful with newsletters. And I haven't traditionally seen that with other agencies. I think other agency newsletters are not performing, to that level. So I'd be really interested to kind of dig in and understand why that's the case. What is the magic sauce there, with what's happening? Is it the content? Is it how you're sending? I don't know. There's a lot of interesting things there. So.
And I think Dion had a question in the chat. I have 16 employees, and I guess I didn't answer this question in the beginning, but we're about 77% personal lines, 23% commercial, and then we do have a pretty extensive book of employee benefits, group health, life, disability. We have a full-time financial advisor in-house who handles all that. So open enrollment now is fun. So
Sam, what do you think about this idea of, do you need to have an ROI on every piece of communication that you send, or is it the cumulative effect of everything? And how are you monitoring or measuring that? Just what's your general thought around it?
Man, I'm by no means an expert on this area, but I would imagine it's the cumulative effect. We do track, we always ask people how they heard about us. A lot of the times it's Google. And I'm just thinking, you never know what led somebody to find you from Google. Maybe they typed in insurance, Columbus, Ohio, or maybe they saw your billboard or sign and then Googled your business name. So it's kind of pesky to go into like an in-depth questionnaire about how somebody found you, but so it's hard to know precisely how people find you in some cases, but I do think it's a cumulative effect.
One thing that we have found is really interesting is if you change that question from how did you hear about us to who was it that referred you to us? If they didn't come from a referral, then they're going to say, well, I searched you on Google, or whatever, or they might even say, I searched for your name on Google, and they give you a little bit more detailed information. The reason they do that is because they're not used to having someone say, who referred you to us? It's interesting. And all of you guys, I think, are sending thank you cards to referral sources. So at the end, you could also say, because I'd like to send them a thank you, and they think, oh man, they must appreciate referrals if they're going to send this person a thank you. So maybe if I refer, I'm also going to be appreciated. So that's a good little tip I like to share with people. So instead of how did you hear about us? Who was it that referred you? And they will correct you and tell you why. So I think it's good to dig and get those details. So, all right, we're going to kind of go to the next phase. I hear some things in the chat about screen freeze. If you scroll up, there's a link to the YouTube live stream. That should hopefully solve some of those issues for you. Strategy. So let's talk just in general around strategy, around retention referral. So on your research, we've talked a little bit about why people are leaving, and this is the time that I was gonna do that poll, but I want to bring that poll back up and just talk about it really quickly, because oh, that's open. Okay, here it is. So we had 73% of people out there say that people leave because of a better price from competitor, and actually 0% have said better service from a competitor. And this is one of those moments where everybody who's listening, I want you to to think about this. But the main reason I think people anyway go to an independent, especially an independent insurance agent, is because they're looking to you for advice, information, and knowledge to be able to find them, the best products and services and really help them. And so it's really hard for me to believe that not one customer would leave for better service, right? So in fact, what we find in our data and what we're looking at in our research is that B, which is better service from a competitor, and D, lost contact with you, essentially are the #1 reasons that people leave. And the reason that we came to that conclusion, and really where we came from here, is that, and we did take out the things that are out of your control, like moving out of state and stuff like that. But the reason that we came to this conclusion is we backed up a little bit. We didn't just look at the point in time that someone left, and instead we looked at prior communication and feedback from that customer up to the point that they left. And what we found is that they were giving you clues, ahead of time through the NPS surveys and that kind of thing. Say, hey, I never hear from you, or, I called so-and-so and they never got back to me. And then when they find a competitor with maybe a better price or maybe not a better price, but then you ask them why, they say, well, I left for competitor. So it was a sort of an after effect. So it was surprising for us as we got into that data. So I wanted to throw that out there. That's why I had the poll earlier, because it went the way that I thought it was going to say. But I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. So change my mind. I guess I'm curious to hear what you guys think when I say people aren't leaving you for price. It's because of service and contact.
So I think that we all think that our service is better than it is, probably. But I think something that's been really helpful for us is I think having an operations manager in your agency is so important. And that's given us the ability to streamline a lot of the training of our service staff. And we just had people who, we had people who were hired at so many different times that were trained by so many different people and doing things different ways. And a lot of that we found out through our Rocket Referrals testimonials. And like you said, a lot of times we get feedback on these people before they leave. And so, to be honest, I kind of love getting the 4 or 5 more than I like getting the 10, because I know a problem and I know I can fix it beforehand. I have a coworker who, he has a lot of old clients. They keep giving him 0s and they mean to give him 10s. So we kind of have a little joke about that now, like he only gets 0s and 10s. But I think, like I said, those 4s and 5s are just super, super important to make sure that we're fixing things before they happen. I just got one last week that someone said, I've been with you for 3 years and you've never shot my rates out. Well, I found out that he got a different job and his old email never bounced back. And so I forwarded him the last 3 years when I quoted his renewal and he never answered me. I wouldn't have known he was upset about that if I hadn't have gotten that Rocket Referrals. So I think that was super cool.
That's awesome. That's a good story. Michelle, Sam, what do you guys think?
Sam?
Michelle? No, that's a good question. I'm not sure what I think about that.
Yeah.
I guess I agree with Ben. We all think that our service is better than it probably actually is. Yeah, I really agree with everything that Ben said. Being able to see with Rocket Referrals a negative review, I mean, I love it. You receive that, and within minutes you can touch base with that customer and say, hey, what I do wrong, and I think
Yeah.
that shows that
Yeah.
means a lot to that person.
I think that, it can help retain that one account, but like to what Ben is saying, you can learn from it, you can improve, and it doesn't happen the next time. So that's an important thing. Looks like some people are messing with you in the chat, Ben. So saying not every one is as big as you guys. So Gordon, had a point, Tori, or they left us for better tech, self-service with a direct company, and I think that that's an interesting conversation. I don't know what individual situation that would be, but my commercial agent that I have, I wouldn't say that they have the best like technology in the world, but anytime I call him or I ask him a question, I kind of look at him as my tech, right? Like I want to be able to just email him and ask him a question. He kind of takes care of it. And so I feel like at least, my consumer preference is I would rather have, a person there that I can go to and ask the question, and they go through all the tech. Like to me, a person is better service than having to log on to a computer and, do all of the things. Even though I'm a techie guy, like I make technology, I love computers, but for certain things, I want to go to a person, and those people are always going to be there, and I think that it's really important. You know what? Maybe we should start talking about ideal customer now, because we're kind of getting into this.
I was about to interrupt you talking about
that. because there's always that customer that's out there. So I think that some people think, hey, I have to have better tech and I have to have low rates and I have to do these things. But all three of you have said, no, we're going to focus on who our ideal customer is. So that's a super important strategy as far as retention goes. So, Ben, if you were going to interrupt, why don't you go ahead and just share, what do you think about this ideal customer and how important is that into having good, solid retention?
Yeah, so I think, in the beginning, everyone, when I was 21, you wanted to write everything that came across your desk. And the person who walked in and has lapsed 6 times in the last 6 months, you still wanted to write them on a monthly cash payment plan. And that's just not feasible. And so now I think we in our agency have gotten really good at, I can tell in 30 seconds whether I want to write someone or not. And if I'm talking to someone from the beginning and I realize that they're going to be a problem, or I always lead, my first question is always, why are you shopping? And if the answer is, oh, there was an issue with my old agent, my payment didn't, I know from the beginning that that's what the issue is. If I hear someone say, I don't like my old agent because they don't answer the phone or they can't get a certificate to me, that's the customer I want. And I think qualifying your customers from the beginning is really important, because then, like we said, you make more money on renewals. And so when you have customers who fit the culture of your agency, you're being really selective. And I think, like my dad, for example, who's been doing this for 40 years, that's why he can have so many customers, is because, almost all of his customers pay in full. He just doesn't deal with billing issues because he's qualified all of his customers. And obviously that's a luxury that takes time to build up to. But I think you just have to be very intentional about knowing this is my target market and I'm not wavering out of writing it. And sometimes it'll throw them off when you're like, sorry, I don't want to write your insurance. And they're like, what do you mean you don't want to? But it's like, I recognize from the beginning that it's not going to make sense in the long run. And if it's not a good fit, it's wasting both of our time. Yeah.
And how do you write somebody that's not going to be a good fit? Then they're going to leave you a bad review, or it's essentially toxicity. It's just, it's not good. You might get that first, check, but it might, it's probably not going to last. And, it's just not going to be good all around. So, what does it take to find your ideal customer? Sam, Michelle, do you guys have any tips, tricks for people in terms of the ideal customer scenario?
Yeah, I think one of the to find your ideal customer, I think you have to know what type of agency you want to be and what is really important to your agency. For us, we've talked in just the last year or so about that, and we've determined that we really want to make sure that we are giving people a lot of value in terms of what kind of coverage they have. We want people to be properly covered. As basic as that seems, that doesn't necessarily just happen. You have to have the resources to make sure that you are working towards that. And if we decide that if we are working with anybody who asks for a quote, we just won't have those resources to work to put in the time and invest the time into folks who really do care about having quality coverage and good advice. And that's the type of customer we're actually trying to serve really well. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. Michelle, what do you think?
Probably just, yeah, I was just going to add just a couple more things to that. You know, I want to be an advisor. I don't want to be just an order taker. You know, it's like fine dining where they're explaining all the options that you have for the evening and this wonderful wine to go with it, versus driving through McDonald's and saying, I want a Happy Meal for, you know, my kid or whatever. So, I mean, I think it's, you know, and if you're at that fine dining place, you're wanting the experience and their knowledge and their advice on even what to order for dinner. And I think we can't just be an order taker, because anybody can pick up an 800 number and dial it and get an order taker on the other end of the line and not warn them of what they're giving up. And that's where I think we have to step up and say, yes, you can get this cheaper at, you know, Geico or whoever you want to pick on today, but they're not going to tell you that if you lower your uninsured, underinsured motorist limits, that when the commercial truck hits your car and then the company they were insured with goes out of business, who's going to pay that for you and your passengers? So
yeah, because they don't care about you.
Happened.
Yeah, they don't care about you. They just care about writing a policy. You know, I care about you. You know, that's the difference. Yes. I represent you. Yeah.
Yes. You're looking for an advisor, even in the example that you used with reaching out to your contact person. You're reaching out to him because you want his expertise, and that's what we have to flip people's mindset from, I'm not an order taker, I'm here to help you and advise you and coach you.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. And you know, when you find those people, they are going to stay with you longer. They're going to buy more from you because, you know, you've gotten. And I think to everybody listening, it's a very, very hard thing sometimes to turn down someone sometimes when they need help, because everybody listening, I know, wants to help people, but you know, to that person who is looking for an order taker, you even want to help them, but maybe you shouldn't be, because at the end of the day, they're not going to be better off. So I remember when we started Rocket Referrals, you know, many years ago, you know, when you're a startup and you're bootstrapped and you don't have big investments, like anybody who calls and wants to use it, you know, you say, you want to say, yes, yeah, sign up, you know, use the platform. But Carl and I held true to this, and I remember we had a few agencies that wanted to use us for things that weren't exactly what we were about. And had we taken those first orders, that would have changed the entire vector. I might not even be here talking to you guys now, you know, about everything we really wanted to talk about. So as hard as it is, I promise you, if you stick to it, it's definitely worth it. So so Whitney says, what are some of the best ways to say no, turn away a client? I'm going to flip this back to you guys. You have a lot more experience with that than I do. So I'm curious, what if you do find somebody who's an order taker, Michelle, what do you say to that person? How do you you know, turn them down or say no without, you know, pissing them off, I guess?
Mm-hmm. So, well, probably a couple different approaches. I mean, we have some preset expectations for limits that we'll write for people. You know, we want an auto in a home or an auto renter some reason, or some kind of multi-policy situation. And if really they're not willing to kind of go along with what we've set as standards, or not necessarily wanting to look at, oh, I only need my auto done, I got my home somewhere else type of a situation, I just tell them, you know, I'm probably just not the best fit at this time. You know, I'd love to help you in the future type of a situation. So that's probably the first way. You know, secondly, I would probably say on top of that, that some people are just going to have such high expectations of you, even if it is that large, great client, kind of like Ben was mentioning, hey, I'm going to need this and this and this, and the other agent didn't do that. You can identify the areas that you can really capitalize on to help them, or know instantly, hey, I'm still not going to be a good fit because I'm not good at X, Y, and Z. I think you'd be better served somewhere else.
Has anybody, are the three of you ever sent someone to a competitor to say, go here, go to this specific person? Yeah.
Yep.
I have someone I don't like who gets a lot of referrals from me.
Who was that again? I missed that.
I have an arch nemesis who gets a lot of referrals from me.
Yeah. Well, that was what I was going to recommend, is
a lot of commercial trucking referrals.
Yeah, is to have sort of, I like how you put it, an arch nemesis. That's good, because you're sending them to people you don't want to. But I think that having a place to send them is a good thing. So Whitney, maybe what you're doing is you're not saying no, you're just giving them a different direction, and kind of thinking of it that way might help a little bit. And you never know that where you're sending them might come back to you. So where you're might not be ideal customer, they might have people that are not their ideal customers that you can have good fit. So I think having a relationship like that might be a good approach. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I had something else I wanted to share.
Yeah,
I had been looking in the background. Sorry if it looks like I'm not even paying attention.
No, it's all good.
I'm going to share my screen again.
Yeah.
When we're talking about target market customers, so we did a class through our state association about 3 or 4 years ago called Total Quality Agency, and it was essentially a year-long consulting course where we were able to essentially, where did that go? So essentially we met once a month for a year, and then at the end of the year we had to put together a strategic plan. And so this was a really nice way for us to kind of collect all our thoughts and recognize, this is why we're doing what we're doing. And one of the things that we did was we had a whole thing on really defining, here's what our customer base is, here's what our target client is. And so we had very defined things on exactly, this is the customer I want. And so that made it very easy for us to share that with our staff. And a lot of times our staff in our agency, we share our profit sharing with the entire staff. And so it incentivizes them to write good business. And so then if they know what our target market is, they can easily say, they'll come to me all the time and say, can you get rid of this person? And a lot of times it's someone who's had a lot of claims or is difficult to deal with, and it's a time suck. And I think when they're incentivized based on profitability of the whole agency, it really incentivizes them to also be frontline underwriters.
Yeah, cool. I know I'm going to get asked in chat, but could you put a link to the thing that you went through to get that, what the class was? I think people might, want to know it. If you could find it, just throw it in the chat. I think it'd be useful for people. And so we've got 15 minutes left, about 15 minutes. And I always have more questions to ask than the time that we get, but that means we've had good conversations. So I want to talk really briefly just around just overall customer, communication. And so a lot of you guys, or all of you, have really high, email percentages, for your users. How important is that? And what kind of role does it play, in getting email addresses? And then do you have any tips for people watching to help them get more email addresses for their clients?
So I guess we always ask for email initially. Like when I'm doing my initial quote sheet, I'm getting an email for everyone.
Yeah. And when if they say no or they don't give it, what approach do you take? You say, okay, whatever, or are you following up with them, or?
I think it depends on the reason why they're not going to give it. If it's someone who's, say, an older person who just doesn't have email, I'm not going to press them on it.
Right. Yeah.
But if it's someone who just legitimately doesn't want to give me their email, then maybe that's a red flag from the beginning that they don't trust me. And if they don't trust me, it's not going to be a good fit for us in the first place. And so typically when people are, I think I've had people who call me up and they're like, give me a quote on my red car. And you're like, can I get your date of birth? I mean, like that's an obvious one. But if you get to certain information that they're just unwilling to share with you, like if I have someone send me deck pages and they white the premiums out, I'm not quoting that.
That's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's true. Michelle, you said bingo, so you've noticed that too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's you know, and if it comes back, kind of swinging back to that target market, you know, the person that your target market, if you're thinking a, you know, semi-professional environment, they're going to be used to emailing. They're going to, you know, be communicating with you at 10 o'clock at night or 1 a.m. in the morning when they finally have time to answer the email quickly. You know, that's between that and texting now. I think texting is just as big as email is right now, and people reply instantly with text messages.
Yep. So actually, good segue into the next poll. I'm going to go ahead and throw this up there. I'm curious what the audience's preferred way to communicate with customers is: email, phone, postal, text, social, all of the above. And as this is going, actually, I want to talk briefly, maybe to save some time, just around cards, because a lot of you, all of you, I believe, are sending a lot of cards. You know, Ben, you just said you sent a ton of holiday cards, and Sam, you sent Thanksgiving cards to people. And Michelle, I know that you guys are probably planning on it. We haven't talked about it specifically, but you know, what role?
New Year's.
New Year's, yes, the New Year's cards are going to be awesome this year. Have you seen our new designs? Well, I'm like tangenting. I get excited about them because I have one that's a dumpster fire that has 2020 on it, so it's going to be good. But I'm curious what role that plays. And actually, Nick from my team just showed me a study where people only get like 10 pieces of personal communication in the mail every year now. And so it's a huge way to stand out. And I'm curious what you guys think on it. And I know it's a big investment for a lot of agencies to kind of think about doing that. But I'm curious what your thoughts are, and if you have specifically any stories around it, because I think that maybe that's how people can see the impact.
Well, I guess I'll just say, oh, go for it, Michelle. You first.
Well, I got a cute granddaughter story. So I sent myself birthday cards because I'm in the Rocket Referral database for work and personal. And so my granddaughter was walking by and she's like, "Hey, you got a birthday card?" And she opens them up and she sees, first of all, that they're the same. She's like, "Why did you send yourself 2 birthday cards?" And I'm like, I don't know, you know. But she was like, "That's so cool." You know, that was a big deal, you know, to her even at 9. And then I actually had a client call me and thank me for sending them a birthday card, which you sent, obviously. So those are my stories.
I love those. I have a voicemail that one of our clients sent us that says, "Hey, you guys need to hear this." And it was from an elderly woman. I can't remember, you know, I don't know how old she was, but she said that she just loved getting the card, and you know, it was the only card she received all year, and it just made her year. But you think about like what that meant to someone, like that is huge, you know. And I think that we forget about those individual situations and like the impact that we make. So that was really cool. That warmed my heart, because you know, to know that we sent it, even though I shouldn't get any of the credit for it, but I wanted to because it was such a cool thing. Sam, you were gonna share a story too, or comment.
Oh yeah. Well, I was just thinking how, okay, so I have a dentist, and one, he's really great. He's a good dentist and a nice guy, but I've seen, and he's been my dentist since I was probably in middle school, but I've moved a little bit further away from that dentist than I used to live, but I still use him, I guess, for those first 2 reasons, but also because he sends me a birthday card every year. And I honestly, I don't know if I would use him still if it wasn't like, I don't know, that's like fostering a warm connection every year. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd use him still, maybe I wouldn't, I don't know. But that's certainly a nice touch.
But you're thinking about it, right? Like it puts the pressure, you know, that's the thing, because you know, like, that's what it's all about. So I guess kind of thinking about it, it's a big spend, you know, to do it, especially, you know, Ben, to send holiday cards, for example. So is it worth it for you guys? What's the ROI, or does it matter? Is it a long-term thing? And I guess I'm just curious.
So, I was just in the background searching actually through my testimonials, and then I searched the word card to see how many times it got brought up. And on the first page, it got brought up 12 times, where I have people who are saying things just like, this is the only card. We had one that said, this is the only card I got for my birthday besides for my mom. But there's just people who we've been sending cards for 60 years, and we did handwritten birthday cards and holiday cards to all of our customers. My grandpa started that, and it was a treat that keeps on giving, and knowing that your computer system will do it for me, and I don't have to write 1,000 cards every year, which is the greatest thing ever. It's worth every single dollar I pay you for it.
Yeah.
But I think that it's just another touch that's not insurance related, and people don't want us to touch them all the time when it's just about insurance. That's why I think our newsletter goes over so well with people, because there's an insurance article, but then it's, here's what we're doing in the community. Here's what we're doing to support organizations that you care about. And that means that if we're touching them 10 times a year, maybe 8 of them are not even insurance related.
Yeah.
And that's just building that relationship so that when we talk about insurance, it's just.
Ben, you're onto something, man. I think you cracked it. You helped me understand why your newsletters are working. And it's because you have a wide breadth of different types of communication. You're right, because you have the things that you're using for personal communication, like cards and other things. So when you do talk about insurance, it's more effective as well. So I think that's for sure. That's cool. I'm going to be researching that a little bit more. That's interesting. The poll, wanted to just share what your preferred way to communicate with people. I had 40% email, 18% phone, none postal mail, 10% text. And I did put a trick question at the end. It was all of the above, which I was hoping everybody would see, or just jump to email. But yeah, I think that it's the most effective when you have a mix of everything. It really is important to hit everybody. And, Michelle, you mentioned texting. There really is a wide ways to communicate with people. So we've done other webinars on communicating with customers and sort of all of the different channels. So keep an eye out for those things, or on our website. There's a lot more information on those. So, all right, just a few more minutes left. And I want to just briefly talk about sort of internal agency topics. Sam, I think this is really going to kind of go to you, and Ben, you've been here too. We kind of talked a little bit how we were going to go over some intergenerational agency topics, but there's a lot of consolidation in the market. Families, acquisitions are passing down to passing the reins down to their children or grandchildren. With that comes transition to clients, especially when you're purchasing a book and that kind of thing. So I'm curious, and on your guys' experience, how are you handling this type of transition in your agency, or how do you plan to handle it as time goes?
For the time being, our agency and my dad and I in particular decided that early on that as soon as possible I would be trying to work with, or other staff members would begin working with the clients he typically did, as much as possible and wherever possible. Doesn't get as too much more complicated than that, but we realized we had to do that.
Yep. Cool. So anybody have any other takes on that, Ben?
Yeah, I think, kind of like how Sam is, we're just intentional about, when my dad writes a customer and they're splitting the kid off, that'll just naturally go to me or to another younger producer in our office, because we can set up another relationship that we know could potentially last for 40, 50 years. So I think we're just really intentional about matching people up like that. But I think that as an industry, we do a really bad job of recruiting other independent agents. And I think I'm preaching to the choir that there's a big talent gap, especially when it comes to the producer role. And so I think it's important I think we have to kind of toot our own horn a little bit, that independent agencies do a lot of really cool things in their community, and we need to kind of leverage that to try and bring people in, because a lot of people think our jobs are very boring until you do them and you get to talk to people all day long.
Yeah, you're helping people's lives. Like, that's the interesting thing about this. Like, people think insurance is boring and that kind of thing. And even when we hire employees, and we say, hey, we have software that helps insurance agencies, and they're like, whoa, that doesn't sound like Google or Facebook or anything exciting, but it's more rewarding, I think, because you really are making a difference. So Michelle, I didn't want to leave you out of that last question, but I'm curious, if you have any take on this, just generally, the consolidation of agencies, either from an acquisition standpoint or passing the family down or mergers. What do you think? How does that impact customer communications?
I think from just a regular agency standpoint, I said any kind of transition, whether it be from one agency owner to the next, whether it be a generational or just inner office. I got into insurance by accident, and the previous owner, I started caring for her clients. So when she did retire, there was no loss of continuity for the client because they were already used to dealing with the person who is going to remain there. And I think it sounds like they've already got that well under wraps for their agencies. So, I think it's definitely a changing industry right now. Yeah,
for sure. And actually, one thing I wanted to mention for people is that, if you're thinking about acquiring a book, or if you have a book that you're going to be selling, having and using your Net Promoter Score and your feedback from customers is really, really useful in the valuation of those. So, when you're working with the person to value your book, make sure that you're bringing that information up. And if you're thinking about acquiring a book, make sure that you say, hey, I want to perform an NPS study on your book to kind of see what they think about you and your agency, to understand the loyalty and that kind of thing. Because remember, you're purchasing business that bought insurance from someone as an advisor, right? So you want to see how that relationship is. Don't value everything just on the values. And I know this from experience because we've worked with agencies to run these studies just for that purpose, and have increased valuations by many thousands of dollars that you wouldn't have thought of or otherwise there. So it pays for itself, and it's worth it. So for you, if you're selling it, use NPS to show value in what that is. And if you're thinking about acquiring, make sure that you're running a Net Promoter Score survey on their book. So last piece, that I want to get. I wanted to talk about employees. I'm sad that I couldn't get into the employee thing. So I just really briefly want to just let people know that one of the most important things about having solid retention is making sure they have good employee culture. Sam, you're going to be doing something. You're going to be talking with Grant Botma today about.
Oh yeah,
about
that's
culture.
right.
So there's something coming up. You guys are going to be talking about culture, and also there was a book. Maybe I could plug his book. I haven't read it. I don't know if it's any good, so I don't usually do that. But Ben, you've read it. Yeah, it's not the problem. It's the problem. The problem isn't their paycheck by Grant Botman. So check that out. Employee culture is really big. We also have a webinar on how culture impacts things on our website under resources. So watch that. But before I leave, I wanted to just give you guys a chance to say, what's one tip or idea that you could leave people with, that's going to help them with the retention, referrals, relationships, and what would it be? And then we'll maybe, if we have some time, see if we have questions. But I think we're pretty much wrapping it up.
So I guess kind of on retention of employees, or kind of directly related to that, something we recently started, which is going over really well, is we're using an organization called Prior. It's an online management tool, PRYOR. And it's fairly inexpensive, and it essentially has tons of different training modules. And so we're having our service staff, we're assigning each of them essentially a module that is a skill that they need to work on. They need to essentially create a short presentation on it, and then in our weekly staff meetings, they're then teaching that back to the rest of the staff. So that's been a really cool way for people to work on individual skills, and they're always going to learn it better when they have to teach it back. And it's been a really cool thing to watch because it's professional development, but people are able to not only keep that for themselves, but share it with the whole rest of the staff. And so I think that's really helped engagement.
Cool. That's good. Sam, Michelle?
I would say. Oh, yeah, go for it, Michelle.
Oh, I would say utilize any automation that you can, and hire other people to do the things that cost you more money to do than to hire out. For instance, bookkeeping or premium fund trust management, or those type of things. It's hard to realize that we are not Superman and Superwoman in whatever case
Yep.
it may be. And once you realize that, you'll be more productive in what you do need to do to help your business grow.
Right. As agency owners, I think that your time is better spent doing other things, right? So time is money.
Yes.
I would say, I guess I'll just steal from Grant Botma because he's on my mind. I'm talking to him today, and I've been going through his culture course. I would make an intentional effort to figure out what your agency's purpose is, and then do everything that you can to align your culture and your business with that. And yeah, that's what I'd say.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Well, you guys, it's been awesome, chatting. I really appreciate you, coming and answering people's questions. Everybody, if you do have questions, you can put them in there. We'll also, share. If you guys want to share your email addresses, if you'd like, you can throw them in chat. If you would want agents to, contact you. Also, I have this last slide before you go. We talked a little bit about holiday cards. We have a promotion running now through, I think, Thanksgiving is when it's available. So rocketreferrals.com/holiday. If you're a customer and you would like to save some time and have some holiday cards, New Year's cards are going to be really big, I think, this year. People are excited to kind of get rid of 2020 and think about 2021. So it is a chance to kind of make an impact with that. We have some really cool designs out there. So rocketreferrals.com/holiday. If you're not yet a customer and you'd like a demo, rocketreferrals.com/demo. We'd love to help you. We're going to have more of these webinars, so keep an eye out for the future webinars. But with that said, thank you all for joining us. Sam, Ben, Michelle, you've been awesome. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge, and hopefully you'll join us again soon. So everybody have a great day and stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.
See you later. Thanks, Tori.
Bye.